If artists aren't getting on your beats, it can be because of your production, but most of the time with beginners, it really just comes down to the sound of it. And if you're ignoring these 5 steps, that is what's ruining your mix. Now, yes, mixing is subjective, and there's a lot of information out there telling you one thing versus another, but no matter what genre you're in, these 5 steps you're gonna always come across because these are the fundamentals, and it's just a good practice to start with. And I'm gonna be showing you this on MPC 3. I know a lot of you guys been fighting this, but I promise you, when you switch over, you're gonna see how the workflow is just more efficient. So for the first step, this is what I like to call creative mixing, and you can do this during your beat making process or you can wait to the end. But for this beat, I actually did it like during the beat making process, so I kind of just want to keep you guys in the same context I was in. So let's go over these effects real quick, and we're going to get to the mixer by clicking on mix, and this is going to be called our channel mixer. Now yes, the 2.0 can show you all your tracks and the volume at the same time, but it can't show you the effects at the same time. And not even FL Studio could do this. And not trying to compare the two, but it's just good to see like this workflow. It's kind of like Pro Tools where you can see all the effects on all the channels that you have. So I really appreciate this kind of layout. And we could just press solo up here. You can hold it down to turn off the effects. So that's pretty cool as well. And we could click in. See, I like half speed because it just makes the melody dark, and I like to use it when I have like fast melodies. So keeping that on, then I could just switch over easily, put this on solo, and you can see I have a half speed, I have delays going on, and then I have a flex beat. Without any of the effects, this is how it sounds. Makes a big difference to the sound, especially when you hear the melodies together. Not only did I put like creative mixing on top of my melodies, I also did it for my drums as well. Let's just press solo so we can solo our drums, and then we can press mix again to get within our channel. So now I can see individual pads. And then if I click over to the effects tab, you can see that I have a delay pro on the hi-hats and a delay on the open hats. So let's just solo the hi-hats real quick, and I could just turn it off. So you can hear that big difference. It's just rattling in your ears from the left and the right, and it just makes it more movement in your track without having to add more sounds or anything like that. And then I thought the same, if I could do it with a hat, I could do it with an open hat as well. So let's just solo our open hat. Just regular. Really just giving more of it space. So then you hear it. So those are all the effects that I got into before I did the arrangement. This was just really in the process, and I was just building on top of that. Now, step number 2 is going to help you achieve balance in your mix. And this is honestly 80% of your mixing right here. And this is leveling your sound. So we go back to volume. I put everything at 0 again. Take this off of solo, go to volume again, and let's see where everything is at. Real quick, you see how the half speed came in kind of weird and those effects came in kind of weird? Yes, that is a thing that is an issue with the 3.0, but I believe it's just the beta. And this is really not an issue with the MPC either. FL Studio does this as well. If you have the gross beat effect on it or like a reverse effect on it, it does kind of delay before it comes in. So the trick to that, if it's annoying you in your mixing process, what you can do is just go to your sound, hold down on it, and just bounce that to an audio track. Make sure it's 0 seconds so that you don't have no extra tail going off at the end. You just want it to cut off. So then you see now you have that audio track down here. And then also I'm just going to do that with the piano as well, and just bounce that to audio track as well. Now I also want to mention, yeah, I obviously cut the video because it does take a while to render, especially if you have a whole track like this. So my tip for that, once you have a 4-bar to 8-bar loop, then just kind of export those waves out if you don't want to have a long render later on when you're doing your arrangement. So now I can just actually go to my mutes and just mute the piano and mute the lead. So now when we play back the beat, it's not going to have that weird delay before it starts. Now, as far as leveling the sounds go, like you don't have to get so crazy about, oh, should I have my kick hitting at -9 or -10 dB, especially on the MPC, because if you actually take this mix and put it into a DAW, it's already going to be capped because the MPC has like a built-in limiter. And if I actually scroll over, You get to see how you can see your sub mix and your return, but more importantly, your master out. It's going way above 0. So all I'm saying is you don't really have to pick out certain dBs to start off with. You could just hear it how it is and just level anything that sounds overpowering over the other sound. Simple as that. But it's just a lot easier just to start at a dB and then have everything fall underneath that. So let's start with the kicks. And the reason why I start off with the drums and the kick in particular is because that's the focal point in trap. You know, in trap, you want to hear those kicks hitting through and the 808s hitting through and the snare. If you want to hear those things, it just makes sense that make those the loudest things and have everything else fall underneath that. It don't have to be any more complicated than that. So then I could just unsolo this and just hear my drums. I can hear the snares loud, turn the snare down, turn the hi-hat down, turn that snare down, turn this open hat down. Now you can also look at the levels too, and you're gonna have those people that tell you, no, you gotta use your ears, man. Don't mix with your eyes. But it's like, calm down, bro. It's about context, because at the same time, this is still a good guide to show you where you can start hearing. You can see from the certain meter that the hat is at this point and the open hat is kind of going over it. And when it goes over it, you could obviously hear that it's getting louder. Then when you kind of balance it, then you could kind of hear that little sweet spot and it fits into the pocket. That's how I like to go about it. So look at it. See the open hat hitting like right here. It's not like from before, where it was like higher than a hi-hat. Let's bring it down. And typically, you kind of want it to be in a similar range. You don't want that open hat to stick out so much, unless that's your preference. But in this, I don't. And then I have this second snare right here, which is I call my bouncy snare. Let's see where it's hitting. See, this is low, but I'm not going to try to match it with my other snare because it's also layering on top of that snare. So I got to find a sweet spot, and I could just go up a bit more. So at that point, I would just use my ears. And then we could get out of the pad mixer and go back to the channel mix just by pressing mix again, unsolo, and then let's actually just mute our melodies and level out the 808 with the drums. Now, obviously, when it comes to your 808s, you want it to just kind of be tucked right under the kick. And it doesn't have to be perfect either. And another tip is to close your eyes. I know that sounds weird. You can have like a better sense of echolocation, you know, like a dolphin and shit. But keep in mind, it don't have to be perfect because you're going to be leveling throughout your mixing process. And this is just really called gain staging. And we can add in our other sounds. Let's add in that piano first. And what you're going to start noticing when you start leveling out other sounds, you're going to start seeing the comparison. And the comparison that I see a lot is my melodies kind of be hidden exactly where the 808 is or tucked underneath. Now, it just really depends on how complex your melody is. Since this piano melody has the low frequencies, the mids, and a bit of the highs, it's going to sound a bit louder, bro. Let's bring that lead in. So I kind of had the lead and the piano at the same level because the lead, I kind of want that to be the lead melody as well as the piano. So I kind of want those both sounds to be at the same level as just one cohesive melody. Now for number 3, this is going to provide you clarity in your mix, because most of the time clarity don't have to just come from you EQing, cutting stuff, or leveling out your beat. Really, it could just come from the stereo imaging of your sound and also panning. You could go to the pan and volume, and then you're going to be able to just pan your sounds. So let's just have a listen one more time. Now, pay attention to this lead sound right here. So right off the back, it's all about context. I don't have to pan my lead sound just because, oh, panning is part of mixing. No, it's all about context. I could clearly see the left side is more dominant with this lead sound, and then my piano side is still stereo, but it's not all the way to the left. So therefore, I don't have to pan my sound so you can hear more clarity, because you can already hear the lead sound and you can hear the piano. Now for the 808 though, usually you want your low end to be in mono so that it's not clashing. So let's just go to our effects real quick. We're just gonna put this in mono so we can just add an effect. I like to always use the modulation stereo width plugin. Now, if you like the texture of having your 808 in stereo, it's not a right or wrong thing. I would just still say put your very low end in mono, and then you could have the highs be spread. We could actually put this back to 100, and I could drop my lows all the way down to 0%. So you can already hear that subtle difference. We could just even do the mids as well. For the most part, I just like to just keep it mono strictly, and we could just go back to our mix on solo. So that sounds a lot better. And even with the drums, let's just go to the drums real quick, go to our pan and volume. Let's just solo our drums. So for the hi-hats, what we can do is pan it a little to the left. So that's like far left. And the thing is, once again, it's all about context. Most of these drum kits may already have your drums already panned. You know, you definitely just want to keep your kicks up the middle and your snare up the middle, unless you have like 2 snares. You could kind of pan one like I do. So I could actually go ahead and just pan this a little to the left as well. Turn it up a bit. And for that open hi-hat, it's still a bit stereo because I added that effect. So we could just pan that a little to the right just to balance out. But keep in mind, before you even start panning, think about the stereo width, because if we actually go back to our sounds, so unsolo this and the bounce lead, go to our effects. Let's just put a stereo width on both of these plugins. Let's say we want to put that piano more in mono. That makes a big difference on how it feels and sound. If we go back and did that to the lead sound, let's see how that would sound. But for me, I would like the lead sound to be a bit wide and the piano to be more narrow, because with a piano sound, I want them to focus more on that, and the lead sound is just kind of complementing it. Even though I did say it's one melody altogether, but this is how I'm mixing it. Now, real quick, if you're liking this video and you're finding value in it, I definitely would appreciate it if you like and subscribe to the channel. And also, if you want to show more support, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee, which is like Patreon. You could go on there, and I also have ebooks that you can check out for the MPC 2.0 that still can cross over to the 3.0, and I'm gonna also be coming out with the 3.0 ebook. Just for the people that want to show more support, this is the best way. And I also do have affiliate links from the gear I use, or from the plugins that, you know, from like the Flex Beat and all the stuff that I recommend. All of those stuff definitely helps the channel. Now let's get back to the video. So now for the fourth step is what I call corrective mixing, because this is when we're going to be using our EQ. So for the most part, let's just pay attention and listen clearly to how the track sounds. So far, everything sounds good and balanced, man. It's not like I have to always EQ everything, because if you pick quality sounds to begin with and you actually have a good sound selection and you have like a bit more space, you don't really have to do much. For the melodies, I could just cut out the low end for both of them just to make more room for my 808s and drums. And I could easily do this by going over to my I/O and switching out the outputs and making it a submix. So I could just scroll up, go to submix 1. Now they're both on submix 1. Scroll over. Let's go to our effects. I have a high pass filter that I can just put on both of them real quick. And I chose a high pass filter over just going to an EQ and trying to do the low cut and all that stuff. Like, this is just a faster way. The more you learn about other plugins and filters and stuff, you can start getting more intentional about the mixing choices that you make. I didn't have to go to an EQ. I could just go to a high pass filter. So that gives it more room for the drums and the 808. Now I could go back for my 808s. I don't need to put an EQ on my 808s, bro. But since it does have a lot of saturation, it can affect a bit of the highs. And if you want more clarity, then, you know, you could go for that. So I could just go here, go to a filter. I will do a low pass filter this time. Now, is it that necessary to try to go through all of that and try to clean it up as best as you can? Not really, because people still like old songs a lot and they didn't have the best mix. So I wouldn't get so caught up in trying to EQ everything. And this last step can be very crucial and sometimes needed and not needed. And that is the dynamics. You know, controlling the dynamics and seeing if you have to compress your drums or not. The one thing I will say, you still can compress your drums a little to make it knock a bit harder. So what I would do instead of even using compressor, I would actually just use a soft clipper. So just like that, without even getting crazy and trying to know what shape means or post level or drive, I don't really care to know all the technical details about it. I just go for what sounds good. Now, obviously, I know what drive means, and I know shape is just changing the form of the wave itself. Then we have all these extra features, but dude, I just need it to knock. So if you like this video, man, like and subscribe, share with your other producer friends, and peace.